Hey everyone, Steve Monette here with another video in my Bible Prophecy Bites series where we look at Bible scripture, history, and current events that all point to the soon return of Jesus the Messiah. Okay, so for today's video, I want to talk about the temple foundation. Again, I've posted no less than 3 to 4 videos on this very subject, but it is coming to a conclusion within the next 30 to 45 days. And the more I study this issue, the more I'm convinced it holds significant meaning, like really significant meaning. But before I get into that, I want to say thank you to all of the subscribers out there that sent me comments after my last video saying that how tired I looked. And at the end of the day, you are all right. I recorded that video after coming off of a shift a couple of weeks ago when we were pretty much in the thick of the pandemic up here in Massachusetts. And, thankfully it is starting to wind down up here, especially on the 911 front. It's still obviously quite relevant and prevalent in the nursing home facilities up here. But we're not seeing anywhere near the call volume on the 911 side. So that is allowing us to catch a break and catch our breath. So again, thank you to all of those of you who left comments of concern, and for those of you that did pray for me. There were several that said they were going to, and I very much appreciate it. Okay, so let's get right back into this temple foundation, shall we? For those of you that have followed this channel, you know about 2 years ago, I found a pattern in the Old Testament relative to the Israelites being taken captive, brought to Babylon, and then their subsequent release 70 years later. This pattern was well documented in the Bible, and we have historical writings, and we even have archaeological artifacts that prove the date ranges of this pattern. So, make no mistake, this pattern is not some, whimsical what-if scenario or it's maybe it's possible, but let me take a poll on YouTube to see what others think. No, that's not the case with this pattern at all. This pattern is backed up with hardcore historical evidence, okay? And the other interesting thing about this pattern is that God predicted that it would happen many, many years before it actually did. And the Bible clearly states this in the book of Jeremiah. Now, for those of you that think I'm making up this pattern, I'm going to leave a link in the box below. And this link will go to a document that I put together that has all of my references, all of my biblical scriptures, and all of the historical evidence so that you can go out and prove it for yourself. I have relied upon the Bible and legitimate historical sources to put this pattern together, okay? Now, please, if you have a master's degree in ancient Middle Eastern history, please don't leave me a comment arguing the finer points of Babylonian record keeping in the year 500 BC. I do not have a degree in history. I am just a lowly paramedic that reads the Bible and uses Google to find articles on Middle Eastern history, okay? That literally happened to me last time I posted a video on that. Somebody wanted to argue the finer points of that, and that's just not where I'm at, obviously. That's not my education. Now, for those of you that are not aware of the pattern that I am discussing, I will very quickly review. About 2 years ago, I was putting a Bible study together, and while doing my research, I stumbled upon this pattern that is clearly repeating itself in today's day and age. And I made a one-page graphic where I showed all the details of this pattern, and I'm going to throw it on the screen right now for everyone to see. You see, the pattern was first seen in the Old Testament, and it's a pattern of captivity. Remember that, okay? This is a pattern of captivity. When the Israelites were taken captive by Nebuchadnezzar in 606 BC. 19 years later, King Nebuchadnezzar returned and destroyed Jerusalem and the temple and burned it to the ground. 25 years after that first attack, Nebuchadnezzar returned for a third time and took even more captives back to Babylon. 70 years later, now this is in 536 BC, the Israelites began to be released and they returned to Jerusalem. And then 7 months after their release from the Babylonian captivity, they built a stone altar and began offering sacrifices to God. 2 years and 2 months after their release from Babylon, the foundation for the second temple was laid in a very large celebration and ceremony. It then took the Israelites 6 months to build the foundation. But then, interestingly, the pattern went silent for 14 years as construction on the temple was halted due to geopolitical issues. Okay, so now fast forward to 1948. And the pattern seems to start up again, and it starts to repeat itself. Except this time, instead of the Israelites being taken captive, the pattern started showing a time of restoration. Again, this is exactly what the Lord predicted in the 37th chapter in the book of Ezekiel. He predicted a pattern of restoration. Now, in 1948, Israel became a nation once again. We all know that. 19 years later, they regained Jerusalem in a battle known to many alive today as the Six-Day War. 25 years after they became a nation, Israel defeated numerous Arab countries during the Yom Kippur War of 1973. 70 years later, they celebrated their independence in May of 2018. Now, 70 years and 7 months later, they built an altar for animal sacrifices and then dedicated it in Jerusalem on December 9th of 2018. That video of that dedication is all over YouTube. So the pattern is nearly identical to the one that occurred in roughly 600 to 536 BC. That's over 2,500 years ago. Now, the only part of the pattern left to repeat itself is the foundation of a temple that is to be laid in the 72nd year and the second month. Now, when we do the math, starting in 1948, we see that the 72nd year and the second month lands in the month of Tammuz, which just so happens to be June or July of 2020. 30 to 45 days from today. Now that's really intriguing to me. A pattern that we once saw 2,500 years ago is repeating itself today, right down to the month. Now only God can do that. It's just not humanly possible, okay? Now, if the pattern were to continue, construction on this temple foundation would need to begin in the next 30 to 45 days. But let's be honest with one another, okay? Do you honestly see that happening? Just imagine for a second. If the Sanhedrin brought a shovel and a wheelbarrow up to the Temple Mount today or in the next 30 days, World War III would begin. I mean, the Jewish people can't even go up to Temple Mount to pray today without causing a riot. Never mind bringing a wheelbarrow and a shovel or a backhoe or front-end loaders or excavators to start putting a foundation down for a temple. Okay? So the chances of a full-scale construction project beginning in the next 30 to 45 days, I don't know, to me seems very slim at best. Yes, I know, with God, all things are possible. But let's be realistic, okay? If the physical construction of the third temple is not likely to happen because of these geopolitical events, what will happen next? It seems unlikely to me that the Lord would just stop the pattern right before it ends. Okay, that doesn't make sense. Remember that this is a pattern of restoration, and restoration cannot be complete until the pattern is complete. Because God doesn't do something halfway. He will always complete the work that he has started. So it doesn't make sense to me, at least, that this pattern would just stop. Right before it ends, just stop. Okay? Without being fulfilled, I should add to that. So, what will happen next? And this is what I've been thinking about for many, many months. And, I've even talked to others about it to get their opinion on it, and I just, it's been a very, very interesting path, shall we say, to try and understand this pattern. But it leads me to ask the question, what if the temple foundation that is to be laid in the 72nd year, second month, is not made of concrete, brick, or mortar? What if the temple foundation to be laid in the next 30 to 45 days is none other than Jesus Christ himself? I mean, think about this. After all, the Bible tells us in many, many places that Jesus is the foundation of the church. Psalm 118:22 says that Jesus was the stone that the builders rejected. 1 Corinthians 3:11, for no man can lay a foundation other than the one which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Doesn't the Bible say in John 2, verses 19 through 22, that Jesus is the temple? Doesn't the Lord say in Isaiah 28:16 that he will lay a precious, tried, and pure foundation in Zion? And doesn't the Bible say 3 times in Ezekiel 37 that the Lord will place his dwelling place in his sanctuary amongst the restored nation of Israel? And by the way, we are seeing the nation of Israel restored today, okay? How many more times do you need the Bible to tell you that Jesus is the foundation? This is just another perfect example of Scripture confirming Scripture, okay? So, let me close with this. This pattern is a pattern of restoration for the nation of Israel, and it was predicted by the Lord in the 37th book of Ezekiel. Go out and read it for yourself. It's really simple. We and our parents are the generation that has seen this prophecy come to pass right before our very eyes. This pattern of restoration comes to a screeching halt in June or July of this year. And what will happen at that time? We don't know for sure. It's pure speculation as to what will happen next. But it seems highly unlikely that a physical temple foundation will be laid in the next 30 to 45 days on Temple Mount. But my money's on the appearance of Messiah. I think there's a better chance that Messiah is going to appear than a concrete foundation being laid on Temple Mount, okay? As I've said, if that were to happen, World War III would start. So, brothers and sisters, late June to late July is going to be a very, very interesting time frame. At the end of this time frame, nothing could happen. Absolutely nothing. It could be nothing. But then again, everything could happen. Only time will tell. So in the meantime, keep looking up, for our redemption draws near. Thanks for watching.